And I've always thought about it, like, if I had to redo, would I go back to Microsoft or work with a smaller company?
What are the biggest mistakes that people make when they are working with people, when they are new to a team? What does it look like to be an engineering director?
Women need to be like advocates for themselves, right? For each other.
Hey, welcome to developersindev.com, a community of young developers to grow your tech career. I hope you really enjoyed the 360 interview with Rahma Javed, the Director of Engineering at Deliveroo. As you saw, Rahma has worked in so many different companies, Microsoft, Wealthfront, really awesome companies. But I want more. I want to dive deep on Rahma's profile. In this in-depth interview, we are going to cover so many topics like tips for junior engineers, career development, diversity in technology, women in tech. A lot of really cool and very interesting topics. If you really enjoy these type of videos, make sure that you share it with your friends and you spread the love. As well as if you want to support us, just please consider donating, because that's gonna help us to keep producing more videos like this one and bring more people to the show. Now, let's dive deep on Rahma. Hello guys, welcome to Developers in Dev. Now we have Rahma from Deliveroo, and this one is the long interview, right? So the idea is basically bring Rahma knowledge, advices, tips for junior engineers and for those of you that are leading and managing people. So I'm Jorge, the host of this program and also software engineer at Eventbrite. I'm so excited about having Rahma here because Rahma is a leader. She cares about a lot about people, and she's really amazing. Rahma is right now working for Deliveroo. Before that, she was in Microsoft, IBM,
Wealthfront.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of amazing different companies. So that's his really interesting background. So let's get started. So Rahma, please, can you introduce to the audience who you are? What are you doing?
Cool. Hi everyone. My name is Rahma Javed. I'm a director of engineering at Deliveroo. I lead the restaurants group. And before that, I was at Wealthfront, where I led the financial services area and led the launch of two significant products, 529 and portfolio line of credit. And before that, I dated back to Microsoft and then Toronto.
So basically, you studied computer engineering in Toronto, as you said before. So what did you learn from those years in the college?
I think I learned a lot of just persistence, and I learned the ability, the fact that, so when you do computer engineering, you're not just doing programming. Like our department was connected with electrical engineering too. So half my courses were electrical engineering. In fact, I could have graduated with that degree as well. So you just learn a lot of core engineering principles, like starting from the start, and then you focus on the computer engineering ones.
How did you get the most out of the university?
I think I got the most out of the university by taking a lot of different courses and actually finally realizing that software is what I wanted to actually focus on.
Awesome. So during the years of the university, basically you worked for IBM and BlackBerry.
Yeah.
Which is real cool.
Yeah.
So how did you do it? How did you prepare yourself for those opportunities?
So University of Toronto, traditionally has a PAY program, which is a whole year placement after third year. But with that, I would have ended up graduating in 5 years. And I was a lot more, I wanted to graduate in just 4 years. So I was like, okay, I need to do summer internships. And yeah, I think for me, it was about just going out there and applying for jobs yourself and applying for internships directly. And yeah, that's how I got placed and doing a bunch of interviews. I remember at RIM, I ended up having so many job interviews that I had probably about 10 different interviews in that process, and then you finally figure out, you're like, okay, this is a job or internship I really want to go for.
So it's all about perseverance, as you mentioned before.
Exactly, it's all about perseverance and trying different things, because unless you try different things, you really don't know what you actually like or what you don't. So
what did you learn from those first professional experiences?
I think I learned about how it is to for example, IBM was a lot more of a bigger company. RIM was probably a bit smaller of a company at that point, and I just learned what it's actually like to work in a professional software industry as opposed to being in the classroom, and what the expectations are of being in the professional world versus being again in your own college classroom.
That's really awesome. So after the college, basically you worked for Microsoft almost more than 4 years.
Yeah.
So what were your main takeaways from such a big company like Microsoft?
I think kind of starting at my career at Microsoft was really good because it built a very strong technical foundation for myself. The principles and the cultural practices I have, I think they all got formatted for me at Microsoft, and it built a really strong foundation for me to then build up that into the next set of startups that I worked at.
After Microsoft, you started to work for Wealthfront, which is really cool fintech company in the Bay Area.
And you grow from software engineering to engineering director, which is really cool and a lot of responsibility.
Yeah.
But why did you decide to move from a big company like Microsoft to a smaller one?
I think it's because of the impact that you can make. So, when you're working for a big company, you're a little fish in like a big ocean versus like, when you work for a smaller company and for a smaller startup, you're almost like a big fish in a pond. And the amount of growth that you can just like see and appreciate, a lot of times you end up just growing with the startup, which is actually what happened in my case. Like I grew as Wealthfront grew.
For you, how was the transition from a more software engineering position to a leadership position?
I think, to be honest, the first set of change that you see, you really have to change your own mindset, because again, as a software engineer, you're trying your best to get the code out, you're trying to code as fast, you're trying to make sure everything is on track. And when you move into a lead position, you're more responsible for making sure that the project is on track. You also need to get yourself off the critical path for a lot of tasks, and you have to almost entrust others around you with the responsibility. So earlier, all the responsibility, or you mitigated risk by taking on the most challenging task and like the biggest responsibility. Now you have to actively give that away and find another like person that you can entrust that with. And I think changing that mindset was probably like the biggest change that I had to accommodate. But after that, it was about the impact that you can make. I feel the impact that I could make as a leader was a lot more significant just than being a one-person army myself.
Yeah. All right. So basically, right now you're the director of engineering at Deliveroo. So can you tell us more about what's Deliveroo? What's your mission, guys?
So we're a food company. We want to become the definitive food company. And Deliveroo started about 5 years ago when an investment banker from New York who moved to London discovered that he couldn't order good quality food late at night as he was working. He realized that like all he could really order were your like standard like shawarmas and kebabs and stuff, but nothing like that you feel like, oh, this is great healthy food, or this is like higher end food that I want to be eating right now. And so effectively that's kind of where the problem started, and he just took it on personally to end up solving this problem for like others, right? Because he's like, if I'm facing it, others are too facing it. And he actually became our first rider. So he was so close to the business that he started, like he did deliveries for the first 9 months, and he still does that from like time to time. So it's really nice to see like people really take this on as a personal mission. Deliveroo is live in 13 different markets right now, and we're growing. So it's a very interesting space that we're in, and a very exciting opportunity for us to become the definitive food company in the space.
You basically moved from the Bay Area to London. You changed the company. Why did you do that? What brought you here?
I've had the opportunity to be living in different countries and different continents like a lot through my life. So I was born in Pakistan, I grew up in Toronto, then I moved to Seattle, and then I moved to California. And I kind of was at that phase in my life where I wanted to really experience Europe because I hadn't gotten an opportunity to. I'd only visited London and I'd almost fell in love with the city. So yeah, I was at that phase where I was like, I want to try something new, and I actually want to try something new in terms of a location as well. So I started looking for interesting opportunities in London, and that's where Deliveroo came about. So it was a great, perfect match.
You're an adventurer. I really like that. That's awesome. Now I would like to understand more your role. Like, what does it look like to be an engineering director? What are your responsibilities, and how does your day-to-day life looks like?
I think the most fun part about my role is how much it actually changes on a day-to-day basis, and my job isn't the same, or it never really gets boring. So I started Deliveroo about 11 months ago, and when I started, the group that I had, it was like a group of almost like 10-12 engineers. Since then, I've more than doubled the team that we have. So I manage multiple teams right now. I have a couple of engineering managers that report directly to me, and then I also have like some engineers who report directly to me. So it's a bit of a mix. I think one of the things that I am responsible for is really taking the restaurants group and taking it to the next level, and figuring out how Deliveroo can become the best restaurant partners. And so it's about like building great products for our restaurants. It's about understanding the ecosystem. It's about finding out like what their problem is and how we can help them grow their own businesses, and maintaining a high technical standard and reliability.
Yes, that's all important. So how would you describe the engineering culture of Deliveroo?
I think our first and my most favorite value is like, no one is someone else's problem. And it's very important to realize and appreciate that the situation that we're in, and how like the fact that we're in such a hyper growth mode is like, a lot of times you're gonna have people who are not there in those designated roles, but that almost leaves an opportunity for you to make that impact, right? For you to grow grow into that role. And so I think like one of the things I love telling people is like, hey, if you come to Deliveroo, you better appreciate the fact that like things are going to change, and things are going to change quite quickly because we're in a very, very competitive space.
So basically adapt to changes and take ownership of your shit.
Exactly, yeah. And I think the other really great value is like how much collaboration we encourage and how much collaboration we have. And I think that is what actually allows people to come in day to day into work and feel like, yes, I can really do this.
You mean collaboration across multiple teams?
Collaboration among the engineers, collaboration across like, the tech discipline, a collaboration with the rest of the business. So it's collaboration all across the stack.
For you, or maybe you can just reply for your team, but what are the main technical challenges that Deliveroo is facing now?
I think one of the core technical challenges is like, how do you grow at the speed at which we're growing and still maintain the high technical standards, still maintain our services to like, continue to be reliable and scalable. And again, like, we grew really fast, we grew really rapidly. So it's also about like, how do you grow from like a monolith sort of like a code system to something that's a lot more like scalable in terms of like a microservices system.
For you, like in all these 11 months that you have been working, what is the most cool or interesting projects for you, or most important for your career?
I think for me, one of the core important projects, and I wouldn't even call them like core technical projects, but it's more about making sure that like, I'm able to grow my team, right? Like I feel like as an engineering director, more than like obviously making sure that like all the projects that we have, like they're on time and we're working on the right set of things, it's also about how do you continue and how do you keep up with the growth that's happening all across.
So if you were out of the college, would you start working for a big company, or do you say, no, I'm going to start like working on a startup?
So that's a very interesting question. I've always thought about it, like, if I had to redo, would I go back to Microsoft or work with a smaller company? I definitely think the rate at which you learn at a smaller company it's quite steep, because you're just almost like a fire hose and everything is thrown at you. You can play multiple roles. You put on multiple hats, but I do think like I got a lot of good key fundamentals when I started off at Microsoft. So I guess maybe my thing would be like you do maybe a year or something at like a bigger company and understand those key fundamentals, and then quickly move on to like a startup.
Okay, so now let's step in, and now you're Rahma, the manager. So what are the things that you're looking for when you are hiring new junior engineers?
I think obviously like passing the technical bar that we have established like at the different places I've worked in. So like there is a technical bar you need to establish. I think a lot of the other times, the other thing that I look for is someone's ability to learn, right? Like how much do they actually appreciate learning, how much they want to grow, and how much they want to actually be able to just contribute, and how passionate they are with the overall product that we're building. Because I think if you have like a good alignment between a person's personal motivations with the larger company goals, the more alignment you can create, the more you can keep them happy and the more you can keep them like fulfilled.
So I would like now step back and say, I'm not Rahma the manager, more about the engineers. So if you analyze all the successful engineers that you have been working with, what all of them have in common? What values do they all of them have in common?
I think, obviously like, having a good technical set of expertise is very important. Being kind of like, just very passionate about technology, right? Like I think it's going to be very hard for someone to be successful or someone to be happy in doing things that they don't really enjoy. So all those people genuinely like were passionate about what they worked on. They enjoyed what they're doing, and that's why they continued to learn, they continued to grow. And then I think the other thing was like all of them like really displayed a very strong work ethic. So all of them were like, really in it. They were putting in the hours. They were like, putting in the work and the time that's needed. And a lot of times that might be at odd hours, right? Like everything is not going to be perfect 9 to 5. But they were just, in it to like, display a very strong work ethic. And I think that's been very inspirational for myself too.
When you join a new engineering team, what do you think is key in order to earn trust of the people and to get into the mood of way of working and methodology?
I think the first and the most important thing is to understand the space that you've just landed in and understand the people that you've just landed in with. So like, actually going out and like understanding every person's like motivations, where they are in their career, where they started off to be, where they want to get to, right? And really building like a lot of trust within them, so that like this is now going to become your team. And so like the more time you can spend in terms of like understanding and connecting with people, the better it puts you up in terms of working with them in the future.
Okay, so you basically have worked with junior people, seniors, leaders, CTOs, VPs. So what are the biggest mistakes that people make when they are working with people, when they are new to a team?
I think a lot of times, like I said, it's probably something that I exhibited as well. It's like playing it kind of as safe as possible, or putting yourself inside a very comfort zone, or just thinking within the box, right? I think a lot of times you tend to appreciate the people who have an appetite for challenge, and the ability to take on like different challenges and opportunities, and the people who really just show up, right? Like, so as opposed to like, this is my job, and like, I'm going to be here from this time to this time, and these are like the base expectations, and I'm just going to make that happen. They don't tend to like, inspire as much confidence as the people who are just like, okay, yeah, we need to do this, I'll make it happen, kind of thing.
And in terms of collaboration and working with others, is something that you have seen like, oh, that's not a good attitude?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think I place a lot of importance on having the right sort of cultural and behavioral mindset. So I fully believe that like, a lot of the technical stuff you can learn, but you need to have the right attitude. And that again goes into the fact that like, you can be very technically, you can like, be very knowledgeable, but if you're just like, this is my job, or like, I'm not going to do more than this, or this is it, versus the people who are just receptive to feedback. I think one of the biggest things that people can do to just learn and grow is being able to be receptive to feedback. And a lot of times, like, you're going to get feedback that you're like, I don't agree with this at all, this is total BS, but still actually appreciating the fact that why did someone even give it to me. And it's fine to filter out a bunch of feedback that may be irrelevant, but the fact that someone gave you certain feedback, like something caused them to do that. So understanding that would be really helpful for your own growth.
Feedback is a gift. And then understand that it's just work, and it's a way of improving yourself.
Exactly. So you should always welcome feedback, especially the negative one, because the more you welcome that, the more it inspires confidence in other people's abilities to give you that feedback. If you become absolutely defensive, you're almost closing yourself off from anyone ever even giving you that. So you're never going to learn what you could improve. So
awesome. I really like, because basically your point was, it's not only about the technical skills, there should be more there. Like
for sure. And I think, yeah, that's the main thing. Again, technical skills is all stuff that you can, eventually learn and stuff, but like, it's with the right attitude, it's with the right mindset. So if you need to have very much of a growth mindset, as opposed to like you can be in a fixed mindset in order to progress in your career.
So you're really successful, so you are there, but what were your biggest mistakes that you ever made in your career? Those things that you say, oh, I learned from that experience, but it was a big mistake.
I think the biggest mistake, or I don't call it mistake, but the things that I'd like to maybe go back and change would be taking more risk. I think a lot of times, like, when you're on certain trajectory, like, you care so much about success that like you're almost scared to take more risk and additional risk. And so you keep on putting yourself in like a safe zone and a comfort zone. And I think if anything I've learned in my life is like, it's okay sometimes to even fail, because you learn a lot from those experiences. So like, to everyone out there, like, put yourself, like, I mean, obviously don't put yourself in like obviously failure situations, but put yourself in situations where you're like, oh, I'm kind of nervous, and like, there is a chance I may fail. And to be honest, every time I've put myself in those situations, I probably come out to be a lot more successful, because like, there was a part in me which was like, I have to make this work. Like, this cannot fail. So I gave my 110% to that, as opposed to taking on things where I was like, oh yeah, I have like good enough confidence that I'm going to succeed anyways. So you end up giving like your 80-90% because you have that in you.
By taking risk in your career, it could be moving from Microsoft to a smaller company,
exactly.
Here, or
yeah, I mean, I think it'd be all that, or actually in a lot of times just like signing up to do work where you're just like, I'm not fully sure. Like, I mean, an interesting story is like, my first job at Microsoft, like, I got hired because the question that was asked to me, like, I didn't have a lot of background context on that area and field, and one of the things I just did is like, okay, I'm just going to attempt answering this to the best of my knowledge, and I was given feedback that the fact that I just went up there and attempted, and very bravely attempted to just go like, yeah, okay, I got this, it really spoke to like, inspiring confidence in the person who hired me, and like my own abilities to execute on stuff that I'm not familiar with.
So basically, don't say no, try hard to answer, and try hard to move forward.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
So the last question for you, Rahma. So I've seen like there are not many women in leadership position.
Yeah.
As much as men's.
Yeah.
So what do you think like we all can do in order to bring that diversity to our workspaces and to encourage that kind of leadership as well?
So I think the interesting thing is, and there was a really good talk by Sheryl Sandberg on this, like I saw it, it's been a few years now, and it was about like, women get to maybe the manager position, but they never really end up getting to like, the C-level position, or they never end up breaking the quote unquote glass ceiling. And I think that's just because of the fact that like the drop-off rate is so high. I think in order to encourage that, like, you need to appreciate the fact that a lot of women have things that they balance, like, they have like a family life, they have children that they need to like also be responsible for, as well as their career. So I think having like strong programs around like maternity leave and like allowing women to come back into the workforce, right? Like, making that as powerful and as strong as possible. I think those would be all the efforts that would help it. I think the other part would be just like, women encouraging women, because a lot of times what things that tend to happen is, again, goes more to the leadership thing. But if a woman tries to like, say something, it's just like, yeah, okay, we understand. But then if a man says the same points, it's very much encouraged, right? So like, I think women need to be like advocates for themselves, right? For each other. And the same goes for like, actually finding sponsors for women in the workplace, not just mentors, but sponsors, like people who will be out for you, who will advocate for you and advocate for you when you're not in the room.
And also in terms of like bringing more computer science students that are women, like is there any secret sauce there?
I think the earlier you can start, the better it is, right? Like the more amount of exposure. So like, again, me, for example, I was not exposed. Like I went into software, or went to computer engineering by chance. I wanted to do medicine my entire life, and then I just discovered I was like, I'm not so into it. And that happened to me all in a small amount of few months while I was in grade 12. And so I applied to 2 colleges for medicine, and then I applied for 1 for engineering, and then I just ended up going with engineering. Even the engineering discipline that I applied for electrical engineering. So I really didn't know what I was getting myself into. I just knew I enjoyed maths, I enjoyed physics, and I was a lot more aligned with analytical thinking. And I would say the earlier on you can expose women, or just school kids to computer science, to programming, to the these kind of concepts, the more it will like expand and open up their minds. Because I think because they don't get exposed towards it, they don't have they don't think of it as something that they want to aspire to become.
Now imagine that in the camera you're talking only for those girls, or women that are doubting, like, oh, should I chase this career, or they are starting early on in their careers.
Yeah.
What is your advice to them?
Yeah, so to those girls out there that are still pretty early on, they don't really know exactly what to do, they want to explore it. I would say that actually go out and try different things, try programming, right? And it might seem like very much of an alien concept to you, but go ahead and try it. Even other things, so that's not just to say you should only try this and get into this, but try a variety of different things so that you know what you enjoy, you know what you don't enjoy, and you're able to make an informed decision rather than just assuming that, oh, this is a career that's been laid out to me, or people around me have been in this career, so I must go into that too. You might be on a very different path to them, and you just need to realize that and appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's advice for everyone
out
there. So I really appreciate your time, Rahma. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that's all. Say goodbye to all the folks.
Bye.
Yay! This is the end of the interview with Rahma. Very intense and very useful interview. If you like it, share it with your friends, spread the knowledge, let us know in the social network Depths in Depth what do you think about the interview, and don't forget to subscribe. As I always mention, if you really want to support us, you can consider donating. And I have a very special thing for you. The next interview is gonna be with Ian Fuller, the CTO of a really cool startup in London called Free Trade. So see you very soon with that interview, and now let's keep rocking.